Hey everyone, I am making a not so happy video today because it is 9/11. Today's September 11th, 2018, which means that was 17 years ago that 9/11 happened. I had just moved to New York 5 days before 9/11, actually. I was going to go to theater school, Neighborhood Playhouse, very good school, by the way. If you want to learn how to act, go there. um, I picked an apartment in Manhattan. Just to kind of back up a minute, the reason I'm making this is, you can see my shirt, it barely fits anymore. I used to be thinner. I'm making this because honestly, 9/11 comes every year and I hate it. I hate 9/11. I don't like to see the pictures. I don't like to see the video. I don't like to, it's like reliving it. But I felt like maybe I should just make this video to kind of get it out there what my experience was. Everybody, of course, has a different experience of 9/11, whether you were in New York or Arlington, Virginia, or even in Pennsylvania, where that plane crashed. Regardless of where you were, whether you saw things in person or not, everybody has their own experience. This is my experience. I was in New York. It's just different, I think. I think anybody that was actually in New York that day, or in Arlington at the Pentagon, or near the Pentagon, is probably has the same kind of experience. It's just that I think none of us really talk about it unless you were on a documentary or something. I didn't lose anybody, personally. I'm not a first responder, so I don't have that real visceral sense, but I do have a sense because of being there in person. I bought this shirt about, I don't know, a few months after 9/11. There were shirts all over, stuff like that, all over for at least a year after it happened. Like I said, moved there for theater school 5 days before, picked an apartment because I could see the Twin Towers out of my window, not knowing at the time, of course, that was going to be something that contributes to memories that will haunt me for the rest of my life. So what happened was, for 5 days, I literally looked out my window at night, every night, because, being an 80s kid, you grow up, and that is like a symbol of America, almost, really, as much as the Statue of Liberty or the White House or anything. It's just iconic, and it was in a lot of movies and TV shows, and so the fact that I was kind of starstruck and moving there, and I was like, wow, of all the apartments that I saw, this one had a view of the towers. And in fact, I don't even know if that view would still be the same. It's quite possible that the building that I lived in, that was on East 23rd Street in Manhattan, they may have put up a high-rise behind it, and I don't know if it even looks the same out the back anymore. But so I looked out my window every night. I loved seeing the towers. I loved seeing some of the floors would be lit up, some would not. I woke up on 9/11. I want to say that was a Tuesday. Actually, today is Tuesday. I want to say that was a Tuesday that it happened, but I don't remember, and I don't feel like Googling it right now. But I woke up, it had started to get cooler in New York, and blue skies. I clicked, I can't remember, I want to say the blinds were closed, right? Because I had a big picture window. I'll show you my apartment, and I'm going to put it on the video too, but I'll show you the picture. This was my apartment, you can see. So I had this window here. It's just a studio. So that was the window for the whole apartment. And I want to say the blinds were down when I woke up. I didn't look out the window. I clicked on the TV and the news, and there was the towers, and there was smoke coming out of them, and I thought it was a trailer for a movie, because I'm thinking, well, there's no way that can't be real. And then they started, like, they were talking, and then I walked over to the window and pulled up the blinds, and sure enough, that was real. And this was before smartphones. Like, I think we had those big clunky cell phones back then with the big numbers on it and everything. That was before, we didn't even have flip phones at that point. So there was no, if you wanted to get on the internet, you had to use a computer, or you would watch the news on TV. So, anyway, so went to the bathroom, came back out. So when I woke up, only one tower had smoke coming out of it. And I thought, that's really weird. It must have been a small plane, like one of those little biplanes, I forget, I don't know what you call those, small planes. And somebody must have just, I don't know, didn't know how to fly and accidentally flew into it. No big deal. So I went and left a message for somebody on the phone, and I was like, hey, this is weird. I think somebody must have, like, accidentally flew into the tower. It's really strange. Clicked the phone, put it down, got done with my phone call, left my message, and went to the bathroom. When I came back out, the second one had smoke coming out of it, and that's when reality hit in. Not just for, reality sets in, not just for me, but everybody. And at that point, it became clear. I didn't see either of the planes actually hitting, but it became clear that something was happening. I didn't see the planes hitting. I heard the first plane, and it was probably weeks before that reality set in to what I had heard. But when I was laying in bed, I wasn't getting up early that day because my school hadn't started yet. I was new to the city, right? So I didn't know. I thought it was kind of strange, but I was like, well, maybe this is the flight pattern in New York. I heard a plane, and it was very, very loud, and I could tell it was going literally right over my building. And you could tell, I know now, what was happening was he was slowing down with putting on the brake. I don't fly planes, so I don't know if you have brakes, but he was slowing down, because you can hear it. You hear that sound sometimes when you're at the airport and whatnot. Was slowing down. So that was the first plane. That was as he was flying right over my building. I think that was the one that came from Boston, if I'm not mistaken. The second plane came from New Jersey. So I heard these, the plane flying overhead, and all those people were gone within, I don't know, a few minutes of the time, probably less than a few minutes of the time that I actually heard it flying overhead. So, not knowing what to do, of course, within 30 minutes, when everybody realized something was really happening, you couldn't get, this was back when they still had payphones. Like I said, smartphones were not a thing. So you could not get phone in or out of the city. I tried my cell phone. I didn't have a landline. I only had a cell phone. then I went down to a payphone because I was trying to call and tell people I was okay, and you couldn't do that. It never occurred to me to email. It's funny, I never even thought about that now, 17 years later. I'm pretty sure I had internet. The internet guy had come and set it up, but I don't know, I didn't. Odd things that you remember. I didn't think to send out an email just to tell people that I was okay. My grandmother, I remember, because I had just moved to New York and she knew that, but my cousin was in the military and was routinely, I believe, at the Pentagon for work with the Marines. So she was kind of freaking out, right? Because was I okay? Was he okay? She had two relatives that were in both places where the planes were hitting. I'm trying to make this quick. I don't want to take forever. But I had left a message with someone, so they were able to get that. My family knew I was okay because I had left a message with someone and they were calling that person. I actually kind of started freaking out because I was like, what was going through my mind was, well, I'm a Christian, I read the Bible, and what was actually going through my mind was that verse, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, your rod and staff will comfort me. Then my next thought was, what if this isn't it? So what if they, what if they're going to go somewhere else? And so I didn't know the city. I didn't have a car. You don't need a car in New York. So I had my cat, and that was it. And it's weird, the stuff you do when you're kind of like in a traumatic situation. I think the whole city was in shock, seriously, because I walked out of my building. I was going to go get a cat carrier for my cat because I was going to leave. I was going to walk, and I was like, I'm not going to stay in this city. I'm not even sure where I thought I was going to walk. And so the lady, of course, she probably thinks I'm nuts because, the credit card machine wasn't working because all of the internet signals and phone signals were all down. So I couldn't get my cat carrier. So I left my cat in my apartment, hoping, hope my building doesn't end up in rubble. And I just started walking. Well, I was on 23rd Street. Well, when you walk about 10 blocks north, you come across and I can't even think of the name of it right now. I'm drawing a blank. Not the Chrysler building, the Empire State Building. And I'm looking up and I see that and I'm like, well, there's the Empire State Building. They might blow that up. Why am I walking? So I bagged my plan such as it was. It really wasn't a plan. It was more like me freaking out, just trying to get out of there. And I went back to my apartment and just kind of waited it out. Other people were walking around. They were walking their dogs and stuff. Some people were sitting around in cabs, the New York cabs, trying to listen to the radio to figure out, just get any news. And so I did, because like I said, we didn't have smartphones. I did take a picture because that was back when you had to have an actual picture, camera with film, and so I had a digital. It wasn't a digital camera, it was a film camera. But I did take a picture because I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and I'll stick it in the video too, but I'll hold it up right now. But this was my view. Before 9/11, it was a really nice view, but this was what I took a picture of. That was after both of the planes had hit at that point. So I think part of the reason I want to make this video was because, they say never forget. So, but if you were actually there when it happened, not only can you never forget, you kind of, I feel like I've spent 17 years trying to forget, because a few years after that, there was a Nicolas Cage movie. I didn't know they were coming out with that movie about the flight, and I didn't know that was coming out, and I had gone to see something else when that trailer came on, and I had basically a miniature panic attack. I almost had to walk out of the theater because it was just too much. It's like post-traumatic stress. It really is. Because for days afterwards, I saw the lights. They had brought in those big old lights when you're doing, you see them if you're doing nighttime construction on the highway, but it's big sets of lights, and they were all over Ground Zero. I could see the light. I couldn't see Ground Zero from my window, but I could see where it was because I could see the light every night for weeks, knowing that they were coming through looking for bodies, dead bodies. And I smelled the smoke for the first few days. I was only about 30 blocks north of the financial district, and which is where the towers were, and then I remember listening to the news. That's kind of all you could do that day. I hadn't even started theater school, so I didn't even have any friends. I literally didn't know anybody. I went up after I decided to go back to my building when I saw the Empire State Building and decided, well, if they blow that up, then I am over here. And so I went back to my building and went up on the rooftop deck. It was 11 floors. And there was several people up there just kind of like watching, and then all of a sudden, so there was a lot of like smoke. This picture here, that was out of my window, but then my recollection is it just kept getting the plumes of smoke, like the clouds of smoke got bigger where you couldn't make out the towers anymore. And then as I was standing up there, I realized actually no, this was before I decided to get my cat carrier. That's what made me decide I was going to get a cat carrier and get my cat and get out of there. But I looked, and we were all looking, but then you couldn't see the tower anymore. Like, and it was kind of surreal because you're thinking that can't be right. Must just be too much smoke. But then, that's when it hit in. Later in the day, that's when it hit. It was like, oh my God, I just saw the tower, but like it was there, and then it wasn't. But there was a lot of smoke from where I was standing, so you couldn't quite make it out very well. So I didn't stand around to watch the second one fall. That's when I was like, I didn't know what I was going to do, but I thought I had a plan in mind. And but when I walked out onto, my building was between 1st and 2nd Avenue, and I looked southward, and all you saw was just just smoke. I mean, it's hard to describe. It's just like you couldn't see anything except for way down. You could see it was just smoke. And what's weird is some of the people were in cabs going towards it. So I don't know what these people were doing. I don't know if they were like working or trying to help or whatever. It was weird. And then for days after, so I was trying to listen to the radio and the news, and it was just so sad because people were calling into these radio stations and giving the names of their loved ones, like they worked here and they worked on this floor and they worked in that building. All these people had to have been gone, but nobody really knew because it was like the first day, the second day, those people stopped calling after about a week because I think as much as you don't want to realize that's what happened, that person's not alive anymore. You just don't have a body to, verify their death. They weren't going to for months. But the bus shelters, if you take the buses, were covered, plastered for weeks and weeks and weeks, plastered with these pictures of these people. And it was just so sad because somebody took their time and took a picture and wrote their name and a phone number and, taped it onto a bus shelter hoping someone would, that phone call was never going to come, that that their loved one had been found. And it was just a weird kind of experience. I had friends who, a work colleague and his wife sent me money, because I remember Sarah Jessica Parker and a bunch of, you know, celebrities, especially Broadway people, doing, I can't remember if it was like a benefit concert or whatever, but it was kind of like, we're going to keep going, you know, the show's going to go on. And I had friends sent me money to buy me a ticket to go to a Broadway show to show support. I don't remember what show I saw, but I did go. I did go to a show. I saw a lot of shows when I lived there, so I don't remember which one that was. I'm also going to put up, so the teacher that I had in theater school, Ron Stetson, he's taught many people. He has some former students that have gone on to have nice careers in television and film. He actually had jury duty that day, and had the subway train stopped, and so he stopped short of the courthouse. So he got out to walk to the courthouse, not knowing that what had happened, and was passing by the people that had all the ash, like they were covered, they were white because they had been downtown and had gotten covered when the buildings fell. But he sent out an email. Used to be email because this is before Facebook, before social media. Websites were like barely a thing. But he talks about his experience, so I'm gonna stick that in the video too. I won't read through the whole thing because I've been talking a lot, but used to be email. Every year on 9/11, starting with the first year anniversary, he would email that out, and now he puts it on Facebook, and I try to mention it something on Facebook every year, but it's kind of, you know, it's just hard. It was different when you actually were there and lived there, and you couldn't get away from it. You couldn't get away from 9/11 if you were in New York, and in fact, a lot of people did try to get away. I couldn't, because I had moved there for a specific reason. My school was there. A lot of people left, so much so that the building that I was in, which was a nice elevator apartment building with a laundry in the basement, and in New York, that's a nice building, because most people just have a walk-up with no laundry. But they called me when my lease was going to be up and offered me $400 less in rent to keep that apartment, because that's how many people were leaving Manhattan and moving elsewhere. They just didn't want to be in the city. But anyway, that's my story. I'm going to put up some videos, not videos, I'm going to put up some pictures that I took. In my apartment, I had 9/11 Never Forget. I had printed out just a picture of a flag, but in the picture here, you can see in the window, I had pasted them up, but I also put it on my door. It stayed on my door the whole time that I lived there. And then, I can't remember, I moved to a second apartment on the Upper East Side later. I can't remember if I left that on the door. This is actually, I took these two pictures, and I'll put them up too. This is the UN on, I used to walk up First Avenue to go to my theater school, which was on 54th Street. And I would walk by the UN, because that's around 42nd Street, something like that. They shut down the whole road in front of the UN for a long time, probably a year. So I took the pictures there, because you could walk on the road in front of the UN, and like it was a sidewalk, because they didn't want people, you know, someone driving up with a bomb in a truck or something like that. But anyway, I'll never forget 9/11. But I decided, I don't know, after 17 years of pretending, I would say, this is just a guess on my part, but I would say 95% of America and the world didn't actually experience it firsthand as an eyewitness, and I am one of those people who did. And I feel like we're all just supposed to sit and not say anything, because I don't know, like, because not very, very, very few people share my experience. And so because of that, I don't say much. But it was traumatic. It still is. I don't like this day. It's like reliving that over and over and over again. And I don't want to do that. But I hope that this video has helped some of you, anybody watching this, in some way. You know, that you can move on after a tragedy. You can, and I'll add in one other little part of my experience that I forgot. About halfway through our school year, we had some of the administrators come in from our school, came in, walked around to all the different classrooms and said, in our break room, like our kitchen was the break room, I think that's where it was, like there's a bunch of CDs and other things, and they all belonged to a young girl about our age. I was in my 20s when that happened. And she was working in one of the towers and passed away, and she was not very old, but they were clearing out her apartment, I guess her family was, and it was the building next door to our school, and so they dropped off a bunch of stuff and said if anybody wanted it. I don't know if anybody ever took it, because I don't think I even looked at those CDs, because the thought of taking something that belonged to someone who had died like that, but that's my personal experience. And it just, New York finally got kind of, it's never back to the way it was. It was a new normal. It did get to a new normal at some point, but you don't ever forget something like that. So anyway, but you do move on. So thanks for watching. If you watched it, I'm going to put up a few of my pictures there at the end. I'm not going to put up any footage from 9/11 or anything like that. I personally find it disturbing. I don't like it. But thanks for watching.